The notification lit up my phone at 2:47 a.m. That harsh, jarring buzz that cuts through even the deepest sleep. An Amber Alert. Silver Honda Civic, license plate, last seen heading northbound on I-95 near Richmond, Virginia. I almost swiped it away. Almost. But something made me pause. The child's name. Emma Rodriguez. 7 years old. Brown hair, green eyes. 4 feet tall. My hand started shaking. I don't have children. Never have. But I knew that description, because 32 years ago that was me. Same name, same age, same exact description. Even the same city. The really strange part. I was looking at my own childhood photo on that alert. If you're listening to this right now, comfortable in your bed, maybe with your phone charging on the nightstand, I need you to do something for me. Check your Amber Alerts. Are they turned on? Good. Now, are you absolutely certain you know what they're really for? Because I thought I did. Until that night changed everything. And now, our story begins. My name is Emma Rodriguez. Well, it is now. It wasn't always. But we'll get to that. I live alone in a modest apartment in Charlottesville, Virginia. Nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom with creaky floors and windows that whistle when the wind picks up. I work remotely as a data analyst, which means most of my human interaction happens through Slack messages and the occasional video call. It's a quiet life. Predictable, safe, or at least, it was. That Tuesday night started like any other. I'd fallen asleep watching Netflix, my laptop still warm on my stomach, when the alert came through. You know the sound. That aggressive, almost angry buzz that Amber Alerts make. Different from any other notification. Designed to wake you up. Designed to get your attention. I grabbed my phone, squinting at the too bright screen. My eyes were still adjusting when I saw it. The photo, a school picture. One of those ones with the cloudy blue background that every kid in America has taken at some point. The girl in the photo was smiling, showing a gap where her front tooth should be. She wore a purple butterfly shirt. I had that same shirt. Still do, actually. Packed away in a box in my closet with other things from my childhood. Things I never look at but can't seem to throw away. The resemblance was unsettling. But it was more than that. The birthmark on her left cheek, barely visible in the photo. I touched my own face, feeling the slight raised skin in the exact same spot. Most people never notice it. You probably wouldn't unless you were looking for it. I sat up, laptop sliding onto the bed beside me. My heart was doing this weird flutter thing, like when you miss a step going downstairs. I read the alert again. And again. Emma Rodriguez, age 7, missing from Richmond, Virginia. Last seen wearing jeans and a red jacket. Maybe in the company of an unknown adult male. If you have any information, Richmond. I grew up in Richmond, moved away when I was 8. Or at least that's what I'd always been told. My parents said we left for my dad's job. Phoenix first, then Seattle, then finally here to Virginia when I was in college. But not Richmond. Never back to Richmond. I did something stupid then. I know it was stupid, but I couldn't help myself. I called the number on the alert. 3 rings, 4. Then a voice. But not what I expected. Not a police dispatcher or FBI agent. The voice was soft, female, familiar in a way that made my skin prickle. "Hello, Emma." I almost dropped the phone. Who is this? You don't remember me, do you? That's okay. You were very young, 7 years old. This is about the alert. The missing girl. There is no missing girl, Emma. There never was. The alert is for you. I laughed. It came out sharp and nervous. That's insane. I'm 39 years old. I'm not missing. I'm in my apartment. Are you sure about that? Really sure? When was the last time you left? When was the last time someone besides delivery drivers saw you? I opened my mouth to answer and couldn't. When had I last gone out? Yesterday? No, I'd worked from home. The day before? Also home. The weekend? I tried to remember and found only fog. This isn't real, I said. This is some kind of prank or... Check your laptop, Emma. Check your work messages. Still holding the phone, I reached for my laptop. My Slack was open. Dozens of messages, all from coworkers I didn't recognize. Names I'd never seen before. The timestamp on the latest message, October 15th, 1999. That was impossible. Slack didn't even exist in '99. I didn't have a laptop in '99. I was 7 years old in 1999. Are you beginning to understand? The voice asked. No, I don't understand anything. The Amber Alert system was established in '96, but that's not really what it's for, Emma. It never was. It's for finding people like you, people who slipped through. Slipped through what? The line went quiet for a moment. Then, reality. I hung up, threw the phone across the room, actually. Heard it hit the wall with a satisfying crack. Then I sat there in the dark, breathing hard, trying to convince myself I was having some kind of breakdown. Stress from work, too much isolation, too much time alone in this apartment. The laptop screen was still glowing beside me, those impossible messages still there. I clicked on one. Emma, where are you? You were supposed to submit the Patterson report hours ago. Patterson report? I didn't know any Patterson. I didn't have any reports due. I scrolled up, more messages, days worth, weeks, all discussing projects I'd never heard of, referencing meetings I'd never attended, from people I'd never met. But the weird thing, the really weird thing, was that I could almost remember them. Like when you wake up from a dream and the details are right there, just out of reach. I knew that Sarah from accounting liked her coffee with 3 sugars. I knew that Mike always scheduled meetings for 2 p.m. because that's when his kids napped. I knew these things, but I'd never learned them. My phone buzzed from across the room. Still working despite the throw. Another Amber Alert. I didn't want to look. Every instinct told me to leave it alone. But you know how it is. Sometimes the thing you're most afraid of is the thing you can't look away from. I picked up the phone. Cracked screen, but still functional. The new alert was almost identical to the first. Same photo, same description, but the location had changed. Last seen in Charlottesville, Virginia, Hillcrest Apartments, Building C. That was my building. My apartment was in Building C. The phone rang immediately, same unknown number. Don't hang up again, the voice said when I answered. We don't have much time. Who are you? My name is Detective Mills. I've been looking for you for 32 years. That's impossible. I'm not missing. My parents, they know where I am. I talk to them every week. When did you last talk to them, Emma? I started to say Sunday, but was it Sunday? I couldn't remember the conversation. Couldn't remember dialing. The last clear memory I had of talking to my mother was Christmas, I whispered. I remember Christmas. Which Christmas? I couldn't answer. They all blurred together, the same conversation maybe. The same jokes about me still being single. The same promise to visit soon. But when was soon? When had I actually seen them? Emma, I need you to listen very carefully. You're stuck. You've been stuck for a very long time. The Amber Alert system, it's designed to find people like you. People who fall between the cracks of what's real and what isn't. That doesn't make sense, doesn't it? Think about it. Why do Amber Alerts always come at strange hours? Why do they wake you from the deepest sleep? Why that specific sound, that particular frequency that cuts through everything else? My hands were shaking now. You're saying, what? That I'm dead? Is this some kind of afterlife thing? No. You're not dead, you're something else. Something that shouldn't exist, but does. And we've been trying to find you, to pull you back, for 3 decades. I looked around my apartment. Everything exactly where it should be. My coffee mug on the counter, my shoes by the door, the photo of me and my college friends on the bookshelf. I walked over to the photo, picked it up. I was in the center, laughing at something off camera, but the friends around me, their faces were wrong. Not blurry exactly, just inconsistent. Like an AI trying to generate people but not quite getting it right. The Amber in Amber Alert, Detective Mills continued. It's not just a name. Amber preserves things. Insects trapped for millions of years, perfectly preserved but completely removed from time. That's what happened to you. When I was 7. When you were 7. October 15th, 1999. You were walking home from school. You remember that day? I did, suddenly, crystal clear. I did. It had been cold for October. I was wearing my red jacket, the one from the alert. I'd stayed late for art club. The sun was already starting to set. The streets were empty except for, there was a van, I said. No, that's what you were supposed to remember. That's the story that makes sense, but that's not what happened. Then what? You found something, a crack, a space between seconds, and you stepped through. I need you to understand something about memory. It's not a recording. It's more like a story we tell ourselves, over and over until we believe it's true. But sometimes the story has holes. As Detective Mills talked, I remembered, not all at once, but in pieces, like a puzzle coming together in reverse. The walk home from school, the red jacket, the October air that smelled like dying leaves and distant fires. But there was something else, a sound that wasn't quite a sound, a color that wasn't quite a color, and a door that wasn't quite a door. It was in the alley between the drugstore and the laundromat. I'd walked past it 100 times, but that day it was different. The air there was thick, like walking through invisible honey. And there was this gap, not in the wall, in the everything. Children see them sometimes, Mills said. Adults learn not to. But children, especially children who are alone, who are quiet, who spend too much time in their own heads, they can find the spaces. I went through, you went through, and you've been there ever since, living a life, but not really. Aging, but not really. Existing in a bubble of time that loops and repeats and folds in on itself. I walked to my window, looked out at the parking lot below. The same cars in the same spots. Had they always been the same? Had that red Toyota ever moved? Had those leaves ever finished falling? Why now? I asked. Why are you contacting me now? Because the system finally found you. The Amber Alert. It's not just an alert, it's a ping. A sonar pulse sent through reality looking for echoes that shouldn't exist. And tonight, after 32 years, you pinged back. So, what happens now? Can you bring me back? The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Emma, I need you to understand something. The 7-year-old girl in that photo, she's not you anymore. She's still 7, still missing, still walking home from school on October 15th, 1999. She's been walking home for 32 years. My reflection in the window looked wrong suddenly. Too old, too young, too there, too not there. That's not possible. You tell me what's possible. You're 39 years old, living in an apartment you can't remember renting, working a job you can't remember getting, existing in a world that only partially exists. The alert isn't looking for who you were, it's looking for who you are. 2 different people, separated by a crack in reality. I touched the window. My reflection touched back, but for just a second, just a fraction of a second, I saw her, 7 years old, red jacket, walking, never getting home. "She's still out there," I whispered. "She's still out there, and she's starting to notice that something's wrong. That's why the alert went out. When the lost begin to realize they're lost, that's when things get dangerous." "Dangerous how?" "What do you think happens when someone realizes they've been walking the same street for 32 years? When they understand that the sun has been setting for 3 decades? When they finally truly comprehend that they're never going home?" The lights in my apartment flickered. No, not flickered. They bent, like the light itself was being pulled in a direction that didn't exist. "She's looking for you," Mills said. "The you that got away, the you that lived the life she should have had. And if she finds you..." The phone went dead, not disconnected. Dead. The screen black and cracked and cold like it had been broken for years. I stood there in the dark apartment that might or might not be real, thinking about a little girl in a red jacket who'd been walking home since 1999. Thinking about the space between seconds. Thinking about amber and insects and things preserved forever in moments they were never meant to stay in. And then I heard it. Footsteps in the hallway, small footsteps, child-sized footsteps, stopping right outside my door. The doorknob turned. Slow, deliberate, the way a child turns a doorknob when they're trying not to wake their parents. But I'd locked it. I always lock it. I'm sure I locked it. The door opened anyway. She stood there in the hallway light. 7 years old, red jacket, that gap-toothed smile from the Amber Alert photo. But her eyes were ancient, tired, angry. "Hi," she said in a voice that was mine, but wasn't. "I've been looking for you." I backed away, bumping into the coffee table. "You're not real." "That's funny." She stepped inside, and the apartment got colder. "I was about to say the same thing about you." She looked around my apartment with curious eyes, picked up the photo from the bookshelf, the one with the not quite right faces. "This is what you did with my life?" She turned the photo toward me. "This is what you stole?" "I didn't steal anything. I don't even remember." "Exactly." The word came out sharp, too loud for such a small body. "You don't remember. You gotta forget. You gotta grow up and move away and become someone else. I gotta walk home forever." Do you know what that's like? To watch the same sun set over and over? To see the same leaves fall but never land? She moved closer. With each step, I could see her more clearly. The mud on her shoes that never dried. The homework in her backpack that was somehow both new and decades old. The October cold that clung to her like a second skin. "The detective," I started. "There is no detective." She smiled, and it was horrible. That was me. It's always been me, calling out from that place between places, sending signals through the only system that could reach you. Amber Alerts, designed to find missing children. Well, here I am. My phone buzzed, another alert, then another, and another, dozens of them all at once, all with her photo, all with locations getting closer and closer to exactly where I stood. Last seen in Charlottesville, Virginia. Last seen on Highland Avenue. Last seen at Hillcrest Apartments. Last seen in Building C. Last seen on the 3rd floor. Last seen outside apartment 3B. Last seen inside. She was right in front of me now. Close enough that I could smell the October on her. Pine sap and pencil shavings, and that particular smell of elementary school hallways. "You want to know the truth?" she asked. "The real truth? Not the story about cracks in reality or spaces between seconds?" I nodded, unable to speak. "We're the same person, always have been. But that day, October 15th, 99, something split. Maybe I did find a crack. Maybe there was a van. Maybe I just stood at a crossroads for 1 second too long and reality couldn't decide which way I went. So I went both ways. You gotta walk forward. I had to stay behind. She reached out and touched my hand. Her skin was ice cold and burning hot at the same time. But here's the thing about splits, she continued. They're not supposed to last. One version has to win. One story has to be true. And for 32 years, yours was winning. You got to be real, while I got to be the echo. The might have been. The ghost in the alert system. The apartment was fading around us. Or maybe coming into focus. I couldn't tell anymore. But ghosts get stronger, she said. Every time someone reads an Amber Alert and feels that little chill. Every time a parent holds their child a little tighter. Every time someone thinks, what if that was my kid? I get a little more real, and you get a little less. I tried to pull my hand away, but I couldn't. Or maybe I didn't want to. Because I could feel it now. The weight of 32 years of walking home. The exhaustion of existing in a single moment stretched into decades. So, what happens now? I asked. She smiled, that gap-toothed, 7-year-old smile. Now? Now you get to walk home, and I get to finally arrive. The world twisted, folded, unfolded. And suddenly, I was standing on a street in Richmond. October 15th, 1999. The sun setting. My red jacket too warm for the weather. My backpack heavy with homework I'd never complete. I started walking because that's what I do, what I've always done, what I'll always do. Somewhere, in an apartment in Charlottesville, a 39-year-old woman is waking up, checking her phone, going to work, living the life I thought was mine. And somewhere, in every phone in America, an Amber Alert waits. Patient, watching, ready to sound when the next child finds a crack in reality, ready to ping through the spaces between seconds, looking for echoes that shouldn't exist. But here's the thing I've learned after 32 years of walking the same street, we're all walking home. Some of us just take longer to arrive, and some of us never arrive at all. My phone buzzes. 3:15 a.m., an Amber Alert. I almost swipe it away, almost. But then I see the photo. A little boy this time. 8 years old, blue backpack. Last seen walking home from school in Portland, Oregon. Last seen 27 years ago. I sit up in bed, my bed that might be real, might be mine, might be neither. And I read the alert carefully, because now I know what they really are. Not warnings, not searches, invitations. The boy in the photo looks tired. He's been walking for so long. And somewhere, in an apartment or a house or a life that should have been his, another version of him is starting to notice that something's wrong. That his memories don't quite fit. That the faces in his photos aren't quite right. That he can't remember the last time he actually left his home. I could ignore it, could go back to sleep, could pretend I don't know what I know, but I dial the number anyway. "Hello, Michael," I say, when he answers. "I know you don't remember me, but you've been walking home for a very long time, and I think it's time you finally arrived." Because that's what we do, those of us who've been found by the alerts. We help others find their way, or lose it. I'm still not sure which. All I know is this. The next time your phone buzzes at 3 a.m. with that harsh, jarring sound, the next time you see a child's face on your screen, smiling out from a school photo that could be from yesterday or decades ago, ask yourself, are you absolutely certain you're not the one who's missing? Are you sure you ever made it home? Check your photos. Check your memories. Check the faces of the people you think you know. And whatever you do, Don't answer if she calls, because sometimes the Amber Alert isn't looking for a missing child. Sometimes it's looking for you, and once it finds you, once you answer that call, you might discover you've been walking home for much longer than you think. Sweet dreams, or at least, try to have sweet dreams, because I haven't told you everything yet. There's more. There's always more. It's been 3 months since I answered that call. 3 months since I helped Michael find his way home, or lose it. I'm still not entirely sure which, but I've learned things. Things about the alerts, things about the system, things I probably shouldn't know. You see, there are others like me, hundreds of us, maybe thousands. We have a name for ourselves, the Found. Those who answered the alert and survived the convergence. Those who somehow managed to stay in this reality when our other selves came calling. We communicate through the alerts themselves. Hidden messages in the license plates. Codes in the timestamps. A whole network of people who exist between the cracks, watching for others who might slip through. But here's what keeps me awake at night. What makes me check my locks 3 times before bed and avoid mirrors in the dark. The alerts are getting more frequent. When I was young, back in the real 1999, Amber Alerts were rare. Special, something that made everyone stop and pay attention. Now they come weekly. Daily sometimes. And not all of them are real. I mean, not real in the traditional sense. The Found have a theory. We talk about it in our encrypted chat rooms, in messages that delete themselves after reading, in conversations that technically never happen. The theory goes like this. Reality is getting thinner. Whatever barrier exists between our world and that other place, the place where time loops and children walk home forever, it's breaking down. The cracks are getting wider. More people are slipping through. And worse, more things are slipping back. Because it's not just lost children trying to reclaim their lives. There are other things in that space between seconds. Things that were never human to begin with. Things that learn to mimic the alerts, to use them like fishing lures, drawing in anyone who answers. Last week, I got an alert for a child that couldn't exist. The math didn't work. Missing since 1987, but only 5 years old. Born in 2019. Last seen tomorrow. The photo was wrong too. It kept changing every time I looked at it. Different child, same smile. Like something was trying to remember what a child looked like and couldn't quite get it right. I didn't answer that one, but someone did. Someone always does. Their name was Janet. She was part of our network. She thought she could help, thought she understood the rules, but there are no rules in the spaces between. Only suggestions, only habits that reality hasn't broken yet. Janet's last message was just 3 words. It's not her. Then nothing. Her account deleted. Her existence questionable. I tried to look her up, tried to find proof she'd ever been real. But the internet had forgotten her. Like she'd been edited out. Or like she'd never been edited in to begin with. But I remember her. The Found always remember. It's our blessing and our curse. We remember the people who slip away, the ones reality forgets. We're the only proof they ever existed. And we're disappearing too. One by one, answering calls we shouldn't answer. Opening doors we shouldn't open. Helping children who aren't really children find their way to places that aren't really home. The woman I spoke to, Detective Mills who wasn't Detective Mills, my younger self who spent 32 years walking home, she told me something before the convergence. Something I didn't include in my first account because I didn't want to believe it. She said, "This isn't the first time. You've answered before. You've been found before. But you keep forgetting. Every time the alert sounds, every time you answer, you reset. You think you're helping, but you're just feeding the system, making it stronger, making the cracks wider." I wanted to ask her how many times, how many resets, how many versions of me have sat in this apartment typing this story, trying to warn others about the alerts. but I was afraid of the answer. Afraid that this moment, right now, has happened before. Will happen again. Is happening always. The alerts are evolution, you see, not technological evolution. Something else. They're reality's immune system, identifying anomalies, quarantining them, processing them. And we're the white blood cells, the found, programmed to respond, to investigate, to clean up the messes where reality bleeds through. But immune systems can turn on themselves. Autoimmune disorders of existence. And I think that's what's happening now. The system is overreacting, seeing threats everywhere, sending out alerts for children who were never missing, for places that never existed, for dangers that haven't happened yet. Or maybe we're the disease. Maybe every person who's ever answered an alert, who's ever felt that chill of recognition, who's ever wondered, what if? Maybe we're contaminating reality just by observing it. Quantum mechanics has the observer effect. The act of observation changes the outcome. So what happens when millions of people observe a child who exists in two states at once? Missing and found. Then and now. Real and not. We collapse the wave function. We force reality to choose. And sometimes reality chooses wrong. There's a phrase we use in the found. A warning, a prayer. Maybe both. Don't answer the amber. Because amber preserves, yes, but it also traps. And once you're caught in that golden resin of frozen time, once you've answered that call and felt reality shift around you, you're preserved too, trapped between the real and the not, forever checking your phone at 3 a.m., forever wondering if you're the one who's really missing. I should stop writing now, should delete this, should pretend I never learned what I've learned. But I can't, because my phone is buzzing. Another alert, another child, another impossible timestamp, another wrong location, another face that's almost familiar but not quite. And despite everything I know, everything I've warned you about, I'm going to answer, because that's what the found do. We answer. We always answer, even when we know we shouldn't, especially then. So I'll leave you with this, dear listener. The next time you hear that sound, that harsh, jarring buzz that cuts through your deepest sleep, ask yourself, is it really trying to wake you up, or is it trying to pull you deeper into a dream you're already having? A dream where children walk home forever, where time loops and folds and breaks, where you've been missing for years but nobody's noticed yet, not even you. Check your photos again. Check them carefully. Look at the faces. Look at the backgrounds. Look at the shadows. Do you see it? That little inconsistency, that small wrongness, that hint that maybe, just maybe, you're not where you think you are. You're not when you think you are. You're not who you think you are. The alert knows, though. The alert always knows. And it's looking for you, right now. Listen, do you hear it? That's not your phone buzzing, that's reality, trying to remember if you're supposed to exist. And if you're very, very quiet, if you hold your breath and listen past the sound of your own heartbeat, you can hear it making up its mind. Sweet dreams. For real this time. Unless you're already dreaming. Unless we're all already dreaming. Unless the alert is the only thing that's real, and everything else is just the story we tell ourselves while we walk home, forever, and ever, and ever. Story number 2. The package sat outside my door for 3 days before I noticed it wasn't mine. Look, I know what you're thinking. How does someone not notice a package at their own apartment door for 3 whole days? Well, when you work 12-hour shifts at Presbyterian Hospital in downtown Denver, and your neighbor Mrs. Chen orders something from Amazon every other day, you just assume things belong where they are. But this Wednesday evening, something made me stop. Maybe it was the way the box was positioned, perfectly centered on my doormat. Or maybe it was because Mrs. Chen hadn't picked it up yet, and she never leaves packages sitting around. I bent down, squinting at the shipping label in the dim hallway light. The address read, Apartment 4B, 1847 Larimer Street. That was my address. My name, though, Sarah Mitchell, was nowhere on it, just the apartment number. The return address was smudged, like someone had deliberately rubbed it with their thumb. Before we dive into what happened next, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like your safe space, your home, suddenly wasn't yours anymore? Like you're sharing it with something you can't see? Drop a comment below if you've ever experienced that feeling, because after what I'm about to tell you, I need to know I'm not alone in this. Now, let's get into the story. I should have left the package alone. That's what any rational person would have done. Call the building manager, report a misdelivered package, let someone else deal with it. But after 3 straight days of double shifts, dealing with emergency room chaos, my judgment wasn't exactly stellar. I picked up the box. It was lighter than expected. About the size of a shoebox, but weighing almost nothing, like it was filled with air. Inside my apartment, I set it on my kitchen counter and stared at it while my leftover Chinese food spun in the microwave. The familiar hum of the appliance couldn't drown out the strange silence that seemed to emanate from that package. My cat, Mochi, usually curious about everything, stayed in the living room. That should have been my second warning. The tape peeled away too easily, like it had been opened before and carefully resealed. Inside, wrapped in way too much bubble wrap, was a white plastic device I recognized immediately. A baby monitor, the newer kind, with the video screen and everything. The brand name, Angel Watch, was embossed in silver letters across the top. Now I live alone. I'm 28, single, no kids. The closest thing I have to a baby is Mochi, and he definitely doesn't need monitoring. I almost laughed, almost. But something about finding this thing made my skin crawl. The apartment felt colder suddenly, even though my thermostat read 72 degrees. There was no packing slip, no invoice, nothing to indicate who sent it or why. Just the monitor, its power cord, and a small camera unit that looked like it could stick to any surface. The microwave beeped, making me jump. I left everything on the counter and ate my sesame chicken in front of the TV, trying to shake the weird feeling. But I kept glancing back at that monitor sitting there like it belonged. Around 10 p.m., curiosity won. I plugged it in. The screen flickered to life with a soft blue glow. For a moment, just static. Then, clear as day, an image appeared. It was a nursery. Pale yellow walls, a white crib with one of those mobiles hanging above it. Little elephants and giraffes slowly spinning. A rocking chair in the corner. A changing table stocked with diapers. But here's what made my blood run cold. The nursery looked exactly like my spare bedroom. Same dimensions, same window placement, same closet door that didn't quite close all the way. Except my spare bedroom was an office. Desk, bookshelf, filing cabinet. I literally had a Zoom call in there this morning. I stood up so fast I knocked over my soda. Mochi bolted under the couch. The spare bedroom door was closed. I always kept it closed. My hand shook as I reached for the doorknob. The metal was ice cold. I pushed it open. Office. Just my office. Everything exactly where I'd left it. But the monitor, still glowing in the kitchen, showed that nursery. And as I stood frozen in my office doorway, I saw something move on the screen. A shadow passing by the crib. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that nursery. That impossible nursery that existed in the same space as my office. I'd moved the monitor to my bedroom, propped against my alarm clock so I could watch it. The nursery remained empty most of the time, but every hour or so, that shadow would drift past. Sometimes it lingered by the crib, sometimes it sat in the rocking chair. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was some kind of mistake. Maybe the monitor was picking up a signal from another apartment. Maybe someone in the building had a baby, and somehow the frequencies got crossed. That had to be it. I called in sick to work. First time in 2 years. "Sarah, you sound terrible," Dr. Hoffman said over the phone. "Take the day. We're overstaffed anyway." Overstaffed at Presbyterian? That never happened, but I didn't argue. I spent the morning researching the Angel Watch brand. Nothing. No company website, no Amazon listings, no reviews. It was like it didn't exist. Around noon, I knocked on Mrs. Chen's door. "Sarah, you look pale. Are you eating enough?" Mrs. Chen, 73 and barely 5 feet tall, had adopted me as her surrogate granddaughter the day I moved in 3 years ago. "I'm fine, Mrs. Chen. Hey, did you order anything recently that might have been delivered to my door by mistake?" She shook her head. "No, dear. All my packages came." "Why? Did you get something?" "Just a mix-up, no big deal." But she grabbed my wrist as I turned to leave. Her fingers were surprisingly strong. "Sarah, you be careful. This building, it has history." "What kind of history?" She glanced down the hallway, then pulled me inside her apartment. "You know about the fire?" I shook my head. 1993, 4th floor. A young couple with a baby. The smoke alarms didn't work. The parents got out, but she didn't need to finish. "Which apartment?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. 4B. My apartment. I mumbled something about needing to go and practically ran back to my door. Inside, the monitor had moved. I'd left it on my nightstand, but now it sat on my coffee table, facing my office door. On the screen, the nursery was different. Toys scattered on the floor. The mobile spinning, though there was no one there to wind it. And in the crib, I moved closer, squinting at the tiny screen. There was something in the crib. Under a yellow blanket, something small, something that wasn't moving. The image flickered, went to static, then came back. The crib was empty, but on the wall behind it, in what looked like crayon, were words. "She's still here." I grabbed my phone to take a picture, but the screen went black. When it came back on, the nursery was normal again. Pristine, empty, waiting. That's when I heard it. Crying, soft, muffled, like it was coming from very far away, or from behind a wall. It was coming from my office. I stood outside the door for 5 full minutes, hand on the knob. The crying continued, rhythmic, desperate. The sound every parent knows means something is wrong. But I didn't have a child. I pushed open the door. Silence. Just my office. Afternoon sunlight streaming through the window, making everything look normal, safe. But the air smelled different, like baby powder. That night, I set up my laptop to record the monitor. I needed proof I wasn't losing my mind. Needed something tangible to show, to make sense of what was happening. Mochi hadn't come out from under my bed all day. Even his favorite treats couldn't coax him out. Animals know things, don't they? They sense what we can't. At exactly 3:17 a.m., I woke to the sound of a lullaby. Not from the monitor, from my office. The melody was familiar. Brahms' lullaby, but slower, distorted, like a music box winding down. The monitor showed the nursery, but this time, someone was there. A woman in a nightgown, her back to the camera, standing over the crib. She was swaying slightly, like she was rocking a baby, but her arms were empty. I grabbed my phone and started recording the monitor's screen. My hand shook so badly I could barely hold it steady. The woman turned around. I couldn't see her face. It was blurred somehow, like looking through frosted glass, but I could see she was crying, shoulders shaking, one hand reaching toward the camera. Then she spoke. "Where is she?" The words came through the monitor's tiny speaker, clear as if she was standing next to me. Where's my baby? The temperature in my bedroom plummeted. I could see my breath. Please, I can't find her. I've looked everywhere. I wanted to answer, wanted to tell her about the fire, about what Mrs. Chen had said, but my throat felt frozen. The woman moved closer to the camera. Her face became slightly clearer, young, maybe mid-20s. Dark hair, eyes that looked right through the screen, right at me. You can see me, can't you? You can hear me. I nodded, forgetting she couldn't actually see me. Or could she? Help me find her, please. She was just here, in her crib. I only stepped out for a minute just to get her bottle. The image flickered. The woman disappeared. The nursery was empty again. But on my laptop, the recording was still going, and in the playback I could see something I hadn't noticed in real time. In the corner of the nursery, barely visible, was a date on a calendar. October 15th, 1993. The day of the fire. I researched until sunrise. Found old newspaper articles. Tragic fire claims infant's life. Parents devastated after apartment blaze. Investigation reveals faulty wiring in Larimer Street building. The baby's name was Emma, 6 months old. Her parents moved out immediately after. Couldn't bear to stay in Denver. The apartment sat empty for years until the building was renovated in 2001. But something had stayed behind. The next day brought something I hadn't expected. As I was leaving for work, finally feeling stable enough to return, I found Mrs. Chen waiting by the mailboxes, clutching a manila envelope. "Sarah, I need to show you something." Her voice was different, urgent in a way I'd never heard before. Back in her apartment, she spread the contents of the envelope across her kitchen table. Photographs, newspaper clippings, handwritten notes, all yellowed with age. "I wasn't entirely truthful yesterday," she said, not meeting my eyes. "About what I know." The photographs were all of apartment 4B, but from different time periods. Different furniture, different decorations, but the same layout, the same rooms. "This building," Mrs. Chen continued, "it's not just about one tragedy. It's about what happens after. What the building does to process things." She picked up a photograph from 1990s, a young woman with short blonde hair standing in what I recognized as my office, but arranged as a nursery. Rebecca Chen, my daughter-in-law. She lived in 4B for 5 years, longest anyone had ever managed. She understood what the apartment needed. My blood went cold. "She was the woman Tom mentioned." Mrs. Chen nodded. Rebecca wasn't just living there, she was facilitating. Every few months, something would arrive. A package, a letter, sometimes just feelings, impressions, and she would help. Help with what? Connections. The building sits on what my grandmother would have called a thin place, where the boundary between worlds is fragile. Rebecca learned to work with it instead of against it. She showed me a journal entry in Rebecca's handwriting. "Emma's mother came through again last night. Same confusion, same desperate searching. I've tried explaining about the fire, but trauma creates loops. She's stuck in that moment, forever looking for her baby, forever not understanding why she can't find her. Tonight, I'm going to try something different. What happened to Rebecca?" Mrs. Chen's expression grew sad. She helped too many. Started taking on their pain. The grief, the confusion, the endless searching, it became hers. One morning I found her in the office, just sitting in the rocking chair that wasn't there, holding a baby that wasn't there, singing to empty air. She flipped to the last entry in the journal. "I understand now. The building doesn't create these connections. It preserves them. Emma's mother isn't haunting 4B. She's protecting it, making sure other lost souls find their way through. But she needs someone on this side to help translate. Someone who can see both worlds. I think I've been here too long. I think I'm becoming part of the pattern. Where is Rebecca now? Riverside Care Facility. She's not entirely here anymore. Sometimes she talks about babies that need feeding, mothers who need comforting. The staff thinks it's dementia, but I know better. Mrs. Chen gathered the photographs back into the envelope. When Rebecca left, the building went quiet for a while. Then new tenants would come and go, never lasting long. Until you. Why me? You work with trauma. At the hospital, you see people at their most vulnerable moments. You help families through loss, through impossible choices. The building recognized that in you. I thought about all the nights in the ER, holding the hand of someone's mother while they said goodbye, translating medical jargon for confused families, being present for moments when words weren't enough. The monitor wasn't random, I realized. It was a tool, a way to establish contact. Mrs. Chen smiled sadly. Rebecca left instructions, hidden in the building's maintenance files. She knew someone else would eventually be chosen. She wanted them to have guidance. That evening, armed with Rebecca's journal and a new understanding, I approached the monitor differently. Instead of being afraid, I tried to be present, professional, the way I was at the hospital when someone needed help navigating the impossible. The nursery appeared as usual, but this time I paid attention to details Rebecca had noted. The way the light fell across the crib, it wasn't natural lighting. It was the glow of flames reflected on smoke. The mobile that spun without wind was actually swaying as if the building was shaking. The woman in the nightgown wasn't wearing a nightgown at all. It was a smoke-stained pajama set. Jennifer, I said, using the name I'd found in the newspaper archives. Your name is Jennifer Mason. The woman on the screen stopped pacing, looked directly at the camera. You know my name? I do. And I know Emma's name too. I know what happened on October 15th, 1993. Her image became clearer, more solid. The fire. I remember the fire, but Emma. I can't find Emma. Jennifer, I need you to listen carefully. The fire happened 31 years ago. You and Mark got out, but Emma didn't make it out with you. The woman's face crumpled. No, that's not... She's here, she has to be here, I hear her crying. The crying you hear, it's not Emma calling for you, it's you calling for Emma. You've been searching for 31 years, but Jennifer, you're not going to find her here. The nursery began to shift, becoming transparent. Behind it, I could see the shadow of my office, but also something else. Another layer. A warm, golden light. I don't understand. You died in the fire too, Jennifer. Your body made it out, but you went back for Emma. You never stopped going back for Emma. The woman looked down at her hands. They were becoming translucent. I'm dead? Your body survived for 3 days in the burn unit, but you were already gone, already searching. Tears streamed down her face. Then she's been alone all this time. My baby's been alone. No, I said firmly, Emma wasn't alone. She was waiting. She's been waiting for you to stop searching the past and start looking toward the future, toward where she actually is. The golden light behind the nursery grew brighter, and there, just at the edge of visibility, I saw a small figure. A child with dark hair and bright eyes, reaching out. Mama? Jennifer spun toward the light. Emma? Emma! The monitor screen blazed with golden warmth, and for just a moment, I saw them together. Mother and daughter, whole and happy and free. Then the screen went dark. The next day, I tried to return the monitor. Took it to the building manager, Tom, a guy in his 50s who'd been running the place for a decade. Never seen this before, he said, turning it over in his hands. No one's reported missing a baby monitor. You sure it was delivered here? The label said 4B. He frowned. That's weird. Hey, you know about what happened in your unit, right? Mrs. Chen mentioned a fire. Tom nodded slowly. Yeah, terrible thing. But here's what's strange. Every few years, someone in 4B reports odd things. Nothing dangerous, just unusual. The last tenant, nice guy, software engineer, said he kept hearing a baby crying. Moved out after 6 months. What about before him? Young couple, they lasted 3 months. Said their dog wouldn't go near the spare bedroom. Just like Mochi. Tom, who lived in 4B the longest? He thought for a moment. Actually, there was this woman, Rebecca something. Lived there for almost 5 years back in the mid-2000s. She seemed to, I don't know, understand the place. What do you mean, understand? She said something once about helping, like she was providing some kind of service. Never explained what she meant. That evening, I made a decision. I set the monitor up in my office. If someone was trying to communicate, maybe I needed to listen. Really listen. The screen showed my actual office at first, which was unsettling in its own way. Watching myself set up the camera unit, seeing my own confused face in that little screen. But the nursery never came back. The monitor just showed my office, empty and normal. Whatever connection had existed was broken or completed. That night, Mochi came out from under the bed. He walked straight into the office, something he hadn't done in days, and curled up in a patch of moonlight on the floor. I found a photo the next day, slipped under my door. Old, yellowed at the edges. A young couple holding a baby girl. On the back, in faded pen, Mark, Jennifer, and Emma. First day home, April 1993. I had it framed. It sits on my office desk now. A reminder. 2 weeks later, another package arrived. No return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper with 2 words, "Thank you." The baby monitor disappeared the next day. I'd left it on the counter to take to an electronics recycling center. But when I woke up, it was gone. Only a small yellow blanket remained. Soft, smelling faintly of baby powder. Impossibly clean for something 30 years old. Epilogue. The new reality. I still live in apartment 4B. It's been 6 months now. The office is just an office. Mochi sleeps in there all the time. Sometimes, late at night, I think I hear something. Not crying. Not anymore, something else. Laughter. A baby's laughter, happy, content. Like she finally found her way home. But here's the thing that still keeps me up some nights. The thing that makes me check my doorstep every evening. The reason I'm sharing this story with you now. Last week, Mrs. Chen mentioned something in passing. She was talking about the couple who lived in 4B after the fire in the late 90s. Nice family, she said. They had a little girl. Sweet thing, always laughing. What was her name? I asked, though somehow I already knew. Emma. They named her Emma. Said it felt right, like the apartment chose the name for them. I went cold. Mrs. Chen, what happened to them? Oh, they moved when Emma was about 6. Somewhere in California, I think. But you know, she looked just like that poor baby from the fire. Same dark hair, same bright eyes, almost like... She trailed off, shaking her head. Like what? Nothing, dear. Just an old woman's imagination. But I knew what she meant. I'd been thinking the same thing. What if the woman I helped wasn't looking for her baby? What if she was making sure her baby had found a new home? A new family, a second chance? What if some connections are stronger than death? What if love, real love, the kind a mother has for her child, can reach across boundaries we don't understand? I don't have answers, only questions. And late at night, when I hear that distant laughter, I wonder, is Emma still here? All the Emmas? The one lost in the fire and the one who lived here after? Are they the same soul, or just an echo of a mother's endless love? The monitor never came back, but sometimes when I'm working late in my office, I smell baby powder, feel a warmth that has nothing to do with the heating system, and I know, somehow, that everything happened exactly as it was supposed to. Love doesn't die in fires. It just transforms, finds new ways to exist, new lives to live, and sometimes it just needs someone to listen, to understand, to say the words that set it free. You're safe. You're loved. You can let go now. But I still check my doorstep every night. Still wonder what other packages might arrive. What other voices need to be heard. Because now I know the truth about apartment 4B. It's not haunted. It's a way station. A place where lost things find their way home. And I'm its keeper now. Just like Rebecca before me. Just like whoever comes after. The building has chosen me. And honestly, I'm okay with that. But if you ever get a mysterious package, something that doesn't quite belong, something that makes your pet hide in your breath fog in a warm room, don't ignore it. Listen, someone might be trying to find their way home, and you might be the only one who can help them. Sweet dreams, everyone. And remember, check your doorstep. You never know what might be waiting for you. What's the strangest thing you've ever found at your door? Let me know in the comments. Like this video if it gave you chills. And subscribe because I have a feeling this isn't the only story apartment 4B wants me to tell. There's something else I haven't mentioned yet. Yesterday, I found another package. This time, it's a music box. And when I wind it up, it doesn't play Brahms' Lullaby. It plays something else. Something I've never heard before. Something that makes Mochi sit perfectly still and stare at the spare bedroom wall. I should have learned by now. When mysterious packages appear at apartment 4B, they're never just coincidence. The music box was smaller than the monitor package, wrapped in brown paper that felt old, textured like parchment. No shipping label this time, no address at all. Just my name written in spidery handwriting across the top, for Sarah, the new keeper. Inside, nestled in tissue paper that smelled of lavender and thyme, was an antique music box, silver-plated, with intricate engravings of dancing children around the sides, the kind of thing you'd find in your grandmother's attic, if your grandmother collected haunted artifacts. When I lifted the lid, expecting the typical ballerina to pop up, there was nothing. Just a small mirror where the dancer should be, and a tiny key already wound tight. The melody that emerged wasn't like anything I'd ever heard. Not quite classical, not quite lullaby. It had an otherworldly quality, like music played through water, or heard in a dream you can't quite remember upon waking. But here's what made my skin crawl: Mochi's reaction. My cat, who had finally returned to normal after the monitor incident, immediately froze when the music started. Not just stopped playing, completely froze, like a statue. His eyes fixed on the spare bedroom wall, pupils dilated, ears forward. He stayed like that for the entire 3-minute melody, not even blinking. When the music stopped, he shook his head like he was clearing water from his ears, looked at me with what I swear was confusion, then walked away like nothing had happened. That first night I put the music box in a drawer. But at 3:17 a.m., the same time I'd first heard Jennifer's voice, it started playing on its own. I found it sitting on my nightstand, lid open, that haunting melody drifting through my bedroom. In the tiny mirror where a dancer should have been, I saw something that made me question my sanity all over again. It wasn't my reflection looking back. It was a child, maybe 4 or 5 years old with curly red hair and freckles, wearing what looked like a 1950s dress. She was mouthing words I couldn't hear, pressing her small hands against the glass like she was trapped inside. When I reached for the music box to close it, the child's eyes met mine. She smiled, a heartbreaking, hopeful smile, and mouthed one word I could clearly understand: help. The music stopped. The mirror showed only my own terrified face. I've been researching the building's history deeper than ever before. Found records going back to 1923, when it was first constructed. And here's what I discovered. Apartment 4B isn't the only unit with a story. There was a little girl named Margaret O'Sullivan who lived in 4B in 1956. She fell down the main staircase and broke her neck. Her parents moved out immediately, but tenants in other apartments reported hearing children's laughter in the hallways, toys moving on their own. In 1967, a teenage boy named David Chen, Mrs. Chen's nephew, jumped from the roof after being bullied at school. For years afterward, residents complained about elevator buttons being pressed by invisible hands, always going to the 4th floor. In 1978, an elderly woman named Rose Patterson had a heart attack in 4B and wasn't found for a week. Neighbors said they could smell her perfume in the hallways for months after her funeral. The pattern was becoming clear. Apartment 4B wasn't just a way station for Jennifer and Emma. It was a collection point for all the building's lost souls. And somehow each tragedy left behind an anchor, an object that connected the deceased to this place. The baby monitor for Jennifer and Emma, now a music box for Margaret. And if my suspicions were correct, there would be more packages coming, more souls needing help finding their way home. I called the number Mrs. Chen had given me for Riverside Care Facility. Rebecca Chen, I told the receptionist. I'd like to visit her. I'm a friend of the family. Rebecca was smaller than I'd expected, sitting by a window in the facility's common room. Her gray hair was neat, her clothes clean, but her eyes held that distant look of someone who exists partially in another world. "You're from 4B, she said, before I even introduced myself. Not a question, a statement. "How did you know?" She smiled sadly. "You have the look, the weight. How many have you helped cross over?" "Just one, Jennifer and Emma. But I think there are more coming." Rebecca nodded slowly. "Margaret will be next. Sweet little thing. She's been waiting the longest, afraid to leave without her dolly. Did you find her music box? How do you—" "I left instructions, hidden throughout the building, for whoever came after me." She leaned forward, gripping my hand with surprising strength. "Sarah, listen carefully. You can't save them all. I tried. I thought I could carry everyone's pain, everyone's confusion. But the building, it feeds on that energy. The more you take on, the more it needs." "What are you saying?" "Set boundaries. Help them cross over, yes, but don't absorb their trauma. Don't make their pain your pain. That's how I ended up here, speaking to children who died 70 years ago, feeding babies that exist only in memory." Her words chilled me, but they also clarified something I'd been feeling. Since the monitor incident, I'd been having dreams about fires, about searching for things I'd never lost. Jennifer's memories bleeding into mine. How do I help Margaret without losing myself? Rebecca squeezed my hand tighter. "Remember who you are. Remember that you have your own life to live. You're a bridge, Sarah, not a destination. Help them cross, then let them go. But that's a story for next time. If you're brave enough to hear it."